One genre of game that I've always enjoyed are train games. Now in train games, you're laying trains on track, you are connecting stations, you are delivering passengers or goods, but many train games are well known for being very cutthroat, very vicious games. But not all of them are quite so nasty. So today on Introspective, I'm going to talk about train games that are a little bit more gentle. All aboard! There's a lot of train games out there, and I could do a whole season just on all these different train games. I did several episodes of Board Games with Scott on games like Ticket to Ride and 18XX, but today I'm going to be focusing on a game that many of you have probably never heard of called Volldampf. Now, Volldampf is made by Martin Wallace, who designed another game many of you probably have heard of called Age of Steam. So I'm going to first talk a little bit about Age of Steam, and then I'll talk about how it's different from Volldampf. Now, Age of Steam is a game about delivering goods. And so you have a map like this. It's actually much larger than this. I can keep going. But the idea is that players are going to be building track to connect different cities. And then their goal is to deliver goods to those cities. The goods are different colors of cubes, and each city wants to get its color. So the red city wants to get red cubes. So as the game goes on, there's going to be more cubes put around the map, and you're going to build track from space to space in order to deliver those cubes. And when you deliver the cubes, you earn points. Now, the game has a lot of spaces to build track. There's lots of track that can be laid over here. And in this game, you're really rewarded for using just your own track. You can use other people's track, but if you do so, you're going to give up some points. But you're not rewarded to do that. The winning strategy in this game is to not only build track, but also then take cubes away from other people who might be trying to build it. It becomes very nasty. By the way, I live right about here on this map. But Age of Steam is known for being quite cutthroat because there's not that many cubes that appear on the board, that players are fighting over very few resources. They're laying their own track. They're being nasty to each other. It's really well known for that. But the game lineage wasn't always that way. Now, it started life, this Age of Steam concept, started life as Lancashire Railways. So this game had a lot of problems, and this came out in the late 90s and was redeveloped into Volldampf, which came out in 2001, and then Age of Steam came out just a year later in 2002. And that's probably why many of you have never seen or heard of Volldampf. But Volldampf is a gentler game because there are a few design decisions that were done differently. And I'll talk about those. So let's look at the board for Volldampf. So the board is very different than Age of Steam. Now the core concept is the same. Blue cubes want to go to the blue spaces, purple cubes want to go to the purple spaces, etc. But for laying track, you don't actually create track. All you do is claim sections of track. So on your turn, you're going to be putting your marker on a section of track and claiming that section of track. Now, it has the same feature from Age of Steam in that if you deliver a cube and you use an opponent's track, your opponent gets that point. So many times you're looking to see, well, I'm going to deliver a cube, I'll get 5 points, someone else will get 2 points, that's fine, I'm getting more points than that. But there's some design differences here that make this a game about cooperating instead of competing. And these differences are, one, more cubes come on the board. So each round of the game, you're drawing cards and putting more cubes on the board. So there's more stuff to deliver. Two, in Age of Steam, there are limits on how far you can deliver a cube, and they start very small. You can only deliver a cube across one section of track at the beginning, and then you can upgrade your locomotive, and then you can deliver it across 2, then 3, then 4. But there's a slow build-up. And what that means is the number of cubes that are available for people to deliver is quite small at the beginning of the game. And the number of scoring opportunities are limited, so you're really trying to plan out very few scoring opportunities. Here, you cannot deliver things more than 6 spaces, but other than that, you can deliver them as far as you'd like from the beginning of the game. So there's more cubes, there's more scoring opportunities, and there's fewer places to connect up track, which means that the strategy of making your own little world, say over here in the bottom corner, is not a very good one because you're going to miss out on a lot of potential scoring opportunities. The winning strategy in this game is being a good helper. is looking to facilitate other people, helping them build these track connections. Because you're not building many of these connections every turn, but if you can be helpful and build track connections that will help other people make deliveries, then you're going to find yourself earning points. And the game ends up going to the people who were the best helpers throughout the game. And I really like that feeling. It is interesting when I play this with someone who's an Age of Steam player, because they'll say, well, I'm going to make my own little place down here in Nolandia. And they're going to then find themselves with very few points compared to the people that are being friendly and helpful and helping to build an infrastructure. And I really like that. There's other games that have done that. TransAmerica, TransEuropa, both of these games are really about connecting your lines into a larger infrastructure, because the goal of those games is to make connections to a number of stations that are scattered across the board, but you can use other people's lines for those connections, and so it's very helpful. If you don't like how nice that is, they've added an expansion called Vexxation, where each player gets a couple pieces of their own track that they can put on the board that prevents anyone else from using it. But that's mean. So what are my thoughts about this? Well, Volldampf is a much better game for people as an introduction to this world of Age of Steam than Age of Steam is, because it's much less harsh. In some ways, it's too bad that Volldampf didn't get a larger life of its own, because it's a really nice game that helps people to start with Ticket to Ride and then do something that will lead them into Age of Steam if they want to play Age of Steam, but it doesn't have those sharp edges and that cutthroat nature that Age of Steam has that can be a real turnoff to some players. Now, I know some of you are like, Scott, I want to play a train game because I want to pull out the hearts of my enemies and look at them as I devour them. But you know, that's what I do as a professor. So my encouragement to you is that if you've made a really competitive game, think about how you could make it into a cooperative game. By doing so, you're also going to be thinking about how to make it into a solo game, which is very popular nowadays. And so this allows you to have a game that can be played in multiple modes and will be interesting to a wider audience of players. An example of that is taking Scrabble, for example, and playing Scrabble as a cooperative game, where the goal is to work together to earn the highest score. And so you'll do this, you won't be able to talk about your tiles, but you're going to add your scores together at the end of the game, and your goal is to establish a high score and then beat that high score on a later play. And now, rather than trying to create letter combinations that chop your opponents off, you're trying to enable them to play good words. You're making that triple word score be very attractive. It's that idea of working together with each other. So, different strokes for different folks, but that's a very different topic. I'll talk to you all later on another episode of Introspective. Bye-bye. But before we talk about Age of Steam, we're going to talk about Lancashire Railways. The Railways. I was worried about pronouncing Lancashire, and I pronounced railways wrong. Oh boy.